Thank you, Shamer. So next we'll move on to the Young Investigator Awards. We make 2 Young Investigator Awards each year, one for more clinical and translational research, one for more basic science research. And these are really the most prestigious awards that we make for research achievements. And this year, I'm really delighted that the 2 awardees are not only exceptional early career scientists, but also very, very dedicated ESPID members, and I'm sure you will recognize them when they come up to the stage. So the first award for the more clinical and translational research goes to Ceri Evans from the UK. Ceri has done quite remarkable, impactful work looking at interactions between maternal and child health, and particularly focused on HIV exposed but uninfected children in low and middle income countries. So Ceri, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aubrey, and to the whole of ESPID. So I'm going to talk to you about my research that I've been doing in rural Zimbabwe over the last almost 10 years. This slide will be no surprise to this audience. It shows the massive increase in availability of antiretroviral therapy globally over the last decade or so. And this has, of course, led to massive reductions in mother-to-child HIV transmission and also massive reductions in overall infant mortality. But because over the same time period, the number of women living with HIV during pregnancy has remained relatively static, it's led to a large increase globally in the population of children that we call HIV exposed but uninfected. And it was estimated in 2022 that there were more than 16 million of these children globally. So I've been working at the Chitambo Institute for Maternal and Child Health Research. Here's some pictures from my time there, including my PhD. And I'm going to talk to you about some of the findings. So the SHINE trial recruited women in rural Zimbabwe during pregnancy, and we followed children up for the early years of life. The red line here shows mortality of children born to mothers with HIV, compared to the blue line showing mortality of children born to mothers without HIV. And you can see a 40% relative increase in mortality in these children, despite what I showed you about the availability of ART for mothers during pregnancy. And I'll just draw your attention to the very beginning of this curve. You'll see a really steep line because mortality happens early. And this green dashed line here is at 6 weeks. At 6 weeks is usually where these children might first encounter healthcare services. It may be where they first get an HIV test, and it should be where they first start taking cotrimoxazole prophylaxis. But by this 6 week time point, we've already got a big gap in the mortality seen between these 2 groups of children, demonstrating that really early life changes are there. I won't dwell on this, but just to show you, we did follow these children up for longer. We looked at growth, both linear growth in this top graph and head circumference in the bottom graph. And you can see, again, differences between these children already apparent at the very early time points. When these children turned 2 years, we did a battery of early child development assessments and found differences at 2 years between children born to mothers with versus without HIV. In terms of their neurodevelopment, even though these children were themselves HIV uninfected. So why is this the case? And this has really been the focus of what we've been trying to do in this research, is to try and think about why these differences are there. And it's probably multifaceted, and there's probably going to be a mixture of biological and socioeconomic and socio-demographic differences, whereby children born into HIV-affected families may be at more risk of things like poverty, compared to children born into families not affected by HIV. So to talk a bit about the biological mechanisms, those same women who were recruited into the SHINE trial, we had samples stored and we tested them for CMV viremia. So this black line at the top is showing our HIV unexposed comparison group and the mortality over the first 18 months. The red dashed line are representing children born to mothers with HIV, but who did not have CMV viremia during pregnancy. And their mortality was actually pretty similar to the HIV unexposed population. The blue dashed line are children born to mothers with low levels of CMV viremia during pregnancy. But the green dashed line are children born to mothers with HIV and higher levels of CMV viremia in pregnancy. And you can see that mortality in this group approached almost 20% in the first 18 months. So we went on to look at immunology. We said that there's an early life problem, so we looked at early life immune development. Very pleased to say that Aubrey Cunnington taught me how to do flow cytometry when I was in St Mary's back in 2013. And I used these skills during my PhD to look at T-cell activation. And we found an immune phenotype in these children, which showed a senescent, exhausted, overly mature CD8 T cell compartment. And particularly that was related to CMV acquisition. So the children who were HIV exposed and infected and had early life CMV exposure and acquisition had really dramatic changes in their T cell activation. And this may be one of the pathways leading eventually to infant mortality and the other outcomes that we've seen. And we recently published this in Nature Communications, and encourage you to read that if you're interested. So what about the next steps? I've just had a small grant award from ESPID, so thank you very much for that. We're going to be interrogating the inflammatory environment in women. So we've still got the samples available from the SHINE trial that I told you about, as well as other studies that are currently recruiting. And we're going to delve deeper using Luminex assays into really defining that inflammatory environment during pregnancy and how that might be related to both clinical outcomes and immune development. But I told you it's not all about biology. There's also the sociodemographics and socioeconomics to think about. And we know about the family environment when families are affected by HIV may be more challenging. So we've teamed up with the Discovery Museum, which is a local Zimbabwean group who put on play sessions. They put on games and networking events for children through a series of traveling museums. And we're going to join forces with them to try and put together a play intervention which might help us to improve mother-child interaction and hopefully eventually improve early child development, to really do wraparound care, to focus not just on the biology, but also the sociodemographics, to try and help improve the outcomes of this clearly vulnerable, expanding population of children who are HIV exposed but uninfected. And I'll just end by thanking some collaborators and donors, and thank you very much.